Tena sambreta sambaro dharma putro yudhishthiraha Pajime dhais tribirpito yajnai sama yajadarim. Translation. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king, Yudhishthira, who was very fearful about the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hare, the personality of Godhead. Purport. The purport is very long, so please let's listen very, very attentively, because we may not be able to speak something many about it. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal and celebrated pious king of the world, and still he was greatly afraid after the execution of the battle of Kurukshetra because of the mass killing in the fight, all of which was done only to install him on the throne. He therefore took all the responsibility for in the warfare, and to get rid of all these sins, he wanted to perform 3 sacrifices in which horses are offered at the altar. Such a sacrifice is very costly. Even Maharaj Yudhishthira had to collect the necessary heap of gold left by Maharaj Maruta, and the Brahmanas who were giving gold in charity by King Maruta. The learned Brahmanas could not take away all the loads of gold given by Maharaj Maruta. And therefore they left behind the major portion of the gift. And Maharaj Maruta also did not again collect such heaps of gold given away in charity. Besides that, all the golden plates and utensils which were used in the sacrifice were also thrown in the dustbins, and all such heaps of gold remained there. It remained unclaimed property for a long time. Maharaj Yudhishthira collected them for his own purposes. Lord Sri Krishna advised the brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira to collect the unclaimed property because it belonged to the king. The more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also collected such unclaimed gold for industrial enterprise or anything else, anything like that. Sorry. This means that the state citizens were completely satisfied. I'm sorry. We're completely satisfied with all necessities of life and therefore not inclined to accept unnecessary productive enterprises for sense gratification. Maharaj Yudhishthira also requisitioned the heap of gold for performing sacrifices and for pleasing the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Hare, personality of Godhead. Otherwise, he had no desire to collect them for the state treasury. One should take lessons from the acts of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was afraid of sins committed on the battlefield, and therefore he wanted to satisfy the Supreme Personality. This indicates that unintentional sins are also committed in our daily occupational discharge of duties. And to counteract even such unintentional crimes, one must perform sacrifices as they are recommended in the revealed scriptures. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajnartat karmano yatra lokayam karma bandanaha, that one must perform sacrifices recommended in the scriptures in order to get rid of commitments of all unauthorized work or even unintentional crimes which are apt to commit. By doing so, one shall be freed from all kinds of sins, and those who do not do so, but work for self-interest, or sense gratification have to undergo all tribulations accrued from committed sins. Therefore, the main purpose of performing sacrifices is to satisfy the Supreme Personality, Hare. The process of performing sacrifices may be different in terms of different times, places, and persons, but the aim of such sacrifices is one and the same at the same time and in all circumstances. Viz, satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, Hare. That is the way of pious life, and that is the way of peace and prosperity in the world at large. Maharaj Yudhishthira did all this as the ideal pious king in the world. If Maharaj Yudhishthira is a sinner in his daily discharge of duties, in royal administration of state affairs, wherein killing of man and animal is recognized at, then we can just imagine the amount of sins committed consciously or unconsciously by the untrained population of the Kali Yuga, who have no way to perform sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. The Bhagavatam says, therefore, that the prime duty of human being is to satisfy the Supreme Lord by the performance of one's occupational duty. This is from Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, text number 13. Let any man of any place or community, caste or creed, be engaged in any sort of occupational duty, but he must agree to perform sacrifices as it is recommended in the scriptures for the particular place, time, and person. In the Vedic literature, it is recommended that in Kali Yuga, people engage in glorifying the Lord by chanting the holy name of Krsna. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Without offense, by doing so, one can be freed from all sins and thus can attain the highest perfection of life by returning home back to God. We have already discussed this more than once in these great literatures, in different places, especially in the introductory portion, by sketching the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And still, we are repeating the same with a view to bring about peace and prosperity in society. The Lord has declared openly in Bhagavad Gita how he becomes pleased with us, and the same process is practically demonstrated in the life and preaching work of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The perfect process of performing jagyas or sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord, Hare, the personality of God who gets us free from all miseries of existence, is to follow the ways of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this dark age of quarrel and dissension. Maharaj Yudhishthira had to collect heaps of gold, secure the paraphernalia for the horse sacrifice jagyas in days of sufficiency. So we can hardly think of such performance of jagya in these days of insufficiency and complete scarcity of gold. At the present moment, we have heaps of papers and promises of their being converted into gold by economic development of modern civilization. And still, there is no possibility of spending riches like Maharaj Yudhishthira, either individually or collectively, or by state patronization, just suitable, therefore, for the age is the method recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in terms of Shastra. Such a method requires no expenditure at all, and yet can award more benefit than other expensive method of jagya performances. The horse sacrifice jagya or cow sacrifice jagya performed by the Vedic regulations shouldn't be misunderstood as a process of killing animals. On the contrary, animals offered for the jagyas were rejuvenated to a new span of life by the transcendental power of chanting the Vedic hymns, which, if properly chanted, are different from what is understood by the common layman. The Veda mantras are all practical, and the proof is rejuvenation of the sacrificed animals. There is no possibility of such methodical chanting of the Vedic hymns by the so-called Brahmanas or priests of the present age. The untrained descendants of the twice-born families are no more like their forefathers, and thus they are counted amongst the Shudras, or once-born men. The once-born man is unfit to chant the Vedic hymns, and therefore there is no practical utility of chanting the original hymns. And to save them all, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propounded the Sankirtana movement, or Jagya, for all practical purposes. And the people of the present age are strongly recommended to follow this sure and recognized path. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanam Timirandakshya Gana Jana Shalakaya Shakshu Yumilitam Yena Tashma Shri Gurave Namaham Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopikakam Tarada Kantana Mustute Tapta Kanchana Gorangira Devrinda Vanishwari Vrisha Banu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchaka Pataro Vyastakripa Sindhubhyaye Vacha Patitana Pavani Bhyo Vaishnava Bhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimakte Bhakti Swami Tinamine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupadaya Sutatmane Shri Gora Karuna Satya Bhattitaya Tinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimakte Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavande Paskachari Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So we are fortunate and highly privileged to be given this opportunity, or to have this opportunity to share the little things we have been reading or we've heard about the life and activities of pure devotees. So before repeating what I've been hearing, I'd like to take mercy and permission from Sri Radha Shama Shundra Bhagavan, Sri Jagannath Balaram Devi Shubhadramai, Sri Gonitai, and from our beloved spiritual masters, His Divine Grace, La Prabhupada, His Holiness, La Bhatta Swami Maharaj, and for wonderful devotees here assembled, that I be able to speak something for the glorification of the Lord and His pure devotees, for my purification and for the benefit of others. Hare Krishna. So once again, this is first canto Bhagavatam, 12th chapter, text number 36. Text number 34.
Yeah.
If we look at this verse, the translation, we see that it's a continuation speech. Therefore, to get the full speech, we have to move a step backward. So in the previous verse, which is linked to this verse, it is said, understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Krishna, collected sufficient riches from the north left by King Maruta. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredient for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hare, the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So we all know the great battle that ensued, the Mahabharata, the battle that went on for 18 days, in which so many people died, and there was a stream of blood. And by material analysis, this was fought for power. In this material world, there's constant tussle, power tussle. There's constant struggling for power, for dominance. His Divine Grace, that Prabhupada mentioned in one of his lectures, that people are so interested in power. People are so interested in dominance. People want to control. People want to be in charge, such that it has come to the point now that people want to kill God and take over. As Prabhupada gave example, like our daily politicians. But the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj was different. Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't fight because he wanted power. And without speaking philosophy, the material evidence of this was that at the end of the battlefield, Yudhishthira Maharaj went back into the field, to Kurukshetra. He was escorted by great personalities headed by Lord Sri Krishna himself, and with the aim to see Srila Bhishma Dev, who was lying down in the bed of arrow, waiting for time to leave this body. Yudhishthira Maharaj was greatly disturbed. He was really, really disturbed. He was worried that just because of him, so many people died. So he was worried. He felt that he has committed great sinful activities by making people to die for him. And as he was meditating and thinking like this, he met with General Bhishma Dev. And it ordinarily, by material analysis, when you have an entourage, you feel happy. You feel like you're on top of the world. Yudhishthira Maharaj had entourage. In his entourage, the personality of Godhead himself was present. What else does anybody want? Yudhishthira Maharaj should be happy. But Srila Prabhupada explained in Untitled Chapter 1 that the reason why Arjuna was refusing to fight was due to his soft-heartedness, due to him being a devotee of the Lord. So also, because Yudhishthira Maharaj was a devotee of the Lord, he was worried. When he saw the dead bodies, when he saw the number of people that left the body in the Kurukshetra, he was very, very disturbed. And when he came before General Bhishma Dev could understand what was going on in his heart. And in 1st Canto, 9th chapter, text number 12, Srila Bhishma Dev said, Aho kastam aho niyayam, yadyuyam dharmanandanam, dvitum nartag plistam, bipradama chutasrayaha. Oh, what terrible sufferings and terrible injustice you very good souls have suffered for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by three things: Brahmanas, God, and religion. So Bhishma Dev said this to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Yudhishthira Maharaj made some inquiries before General Bhishma Dev. That is 9th chapter. Bhishma Dev gave him so much knowledge, had to become an ideal king, and so many things. Everything was explained to him. At the end, he told him that he has to perform some sacrifice to please the Lord, to eradicate whatever sin that come in the process of this great battle. Now, for that to be done, because to get horse, it's not a small thing. And he said 3 horse sacrifice. And so many other things involved for this sacrifice. It's not like today we are using ghee, only ghee and some flowers and vegetables, and fruits. Even today, some priests, even among us in Africa, we say it doesn't mean. When we want to do jaga, we use ordinary oil, which is not proper. Ideally speaking, you should use ghee. But we have become so poor that even to get ghee is a problem. So we resort to using oil or butter made in the factory. Serious degradation and serious poverty. But in the time when Yudhishthira Maharaj was going to perform this jagya, there was a standard. There was SOP, standard operational procedure. You don't go below the standard. and the Brahmanas were completely qualified. Now, when we are doing Jagya, we need to get camphor. We light it to ignite, even though we recite the prayers for calling fire. But fire doesn't come, so we have to take matches and camphor to ignite. But in the days where Brahmanas were Brahmanas, when they were qualified, they will just recite the mantra and Agni Dev will appear from the fire. The fire will ignite on its own. So all these requirements, all this standard were maintained in its fullness in that time. So Yudhishthira Maharaj needed to get this specification met, this standard met, and to do that, he needed a lot of money. And it was said that there was a king. This king was called Maruta. He was the son of Abhikshit. King Maruta had performed a sacrifice, a huge jagya called Sankara Jagya. When he performed this sacrifice, he did it, and at the end of the sacrifice, the Lord was pleased. Being pleased with the sacrifice of King Maruta, the Lord blessed him, benedicted with a mountain peak of gold. Nigerian man say gold, Sarah, everywhere. Mountain peak of gold. In the translation to that particular verse, Srila Prabhupada explained that today people will want to look for that mountain. And Prabhupada said it's somewhere in the Himalayas. We want to look for it so that we will exploit gold. You know, Ghanaians are known for gold, you know, and things like that. So we want money by all means. People want money. Anyway, so this king, the Lord was pleased with him and he benedicted with him with a mountain peak of gold. And he reigned as a king for 1,000 years. This king was so wealthy. He had money. He had opulence. He had wealth. He had affluence. That when Brahmanas come to visit him during Jagya and other ceremonial functions, when he gives them gold, the Brahmana cannot pack everything. Sometimes devotees, we are very worried. We are so worried that we are angry with the process. But even the contemporary scripture we call Bible, God said in Isaiah, sorry, not Isaiah, but somewhere else in the Bible, God said, when you worship me and I am pleased with you, just like the Lord was pleased with King Maruta, God said, I will open a small window from the heavens and I will send down a drop of mercy. You will pack and it will not finish. That was what happened to Maruta. He got a mountain peak of gold. And the plates he used for doing his jagya, plates were made of gold. Everything around him, gold. Today when we are doing jagya, even in India, today when they are doing jagya, they use leaf plates because they are going to discard them at the end of the jagya. So you don't need to spend money. Use leaf plates. But when King Maruta was doing jagya, he used gold plates. And at the end of the jagya, the Brahmanas that come from that jagya, he gives their remuneration, such that when they pack, some will still be left. Because he has already given to the Brahmanas. He does not have to come back to pack the leftover. These leftovers are sent to the dustbin. In Africa, we say the second richest man or the richest man in Africa is who? Aliko Dangote. But what we are talking now, you can see that Dangote is a poor man. We have the richest man in the world. But from the description of Maruta's wealth, we can see that these people are all poor people. So when Maruta left the body, some wealth were left behind. So this time that Yudhishthira Maharaj had to perform this jagya, he had to send his brothers to the north. And they collected all these remnants of wealth for this jagya. In this purport, the purport discussed mainly two things. It's a long purport, but I want to bring it down into two things. One, how Maharaj Yudhishthira collected materials for this jagya. He spoke about the jagya. And the second part of this purport, which is like half of the purport, spoke about the importance of chanting the holy name or the jagya for this age. In the beginning of the purport, the purport said, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal and celebrated pious king of the world. And still he was greatly afraid after the execution of the battlefield of the battle of Kurukshetra because of the mass killing in the fight, all of which was done only to install him on the throne. A devotee is called Iparadukaduki, one who feels the pain of others, one who takes upon himself the tribulations, the pain, the suffering of others. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was not self-centered. Therefore, he felt very greatly disturbed that people died on account of him. In modern day politics, we have only one man who has made a statement like this: my ambition, Nigerians. One of our ex-presidents, good luck, Yadhunath, he made a statement like that. We don't know how much he means it, but politicians can say anything. But at the same time, I want to quote sometimes even material people, because even we we consider ourselves so advanced, we are studying the scriptures, we don't apply. But gross materialists, karmics, sometimes they do wonderful things. There is a musician called Akon. He sang a song. He said, you can put the blame on me. If they put the blame on you, I take the blame from you. Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't put the blame of massive massacre on Duryodhana. No. He put the blame on himself because of his soft-heartedness for being a devotee of the Lord. But then, Duryodhana, he put the blame on others. A few days ago, we were just discussing here in the temple of how Duryodhana sent his uncles, great uncles, grandfathers, and many people into prison because he was insulted in an arena by Duryodhana and by Bhima. Bhima called him, see you, son of a widow. So Duryodhana was very disturbed. And he went to his parents, his grandparents, and his kinsmen and said, today I have been insulted. Hare Krishna. Today I was insulted, I was humiliated, I'm addressed as the son of a widow. So he asked the kinsmen, the grandparents, how come my mother became a widow? So they explained to him that according to astrology, the man who will marry your mother will die on time, and your mother will become a widow. So to avert that prophecy, we had to first of all marry your mother to a goat. And after that, the goat was killed. So that is why somehow your mother can be seen to be a widow, because the first husband, the goat, died. Duryodhana was very, very angry. Why will you marry my mother to a goat? Duryodhana was so angry, he imprisoned all the elders, including his grandfather, put them into prison, let them suffer. In many instances, Duryodhana saw his problem to be caused by others. There are so many examples. No, but Yudhishthira Maharaj was not like that. If Yudhishthira Maharaj was like that, he would have gone into battle long time before he eventually did. So Prabhu further explained the purport. He said, the more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also collected such unclaimed gold for industrial enterprises, which means that the citizens were all self-satisfied. Somehow or the other, philosophically, it is explained that there's a difference between animal and man. When the animals, they come in contact with fortune, maybe animals meet a bag of grains, the birds will take whatever they can take and go away. But when human beings come in contact with a bag, even a lorry of grains, they will want to carry the full lorry and go. But the inhabitants of Maruta's kingdom, the wealth was surplus. It was so sufficient that nobody was interested in leftover. Their level of greed was not very high. Psychology explained that one of the reasons why people are greedy and envious is due to poverty. But then our philosophy said that poverty is not that you don't have money or you don't have material possession. Poverty means that your consciousness is poor. When a person have the poverty of consciousness, he'll be greedy over anything. He'll be greedy over everything. He will be envious of whoever, and he will see fault in everything. But this subject, their king was an ideal king. He treated them so nicely, and they were so satisfied. As the Prabhupada so explained, even Yudhishthira Maharaj who came to collect these things, he's not collecting them also for material gain. Yudhishthira Maharaj collected because he was instructed by Lord Krsna. He wanted to perform devotional service to please the Lord. He's not doing it for material benefit, for material gain. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself told us that we should take all risk to please him. Whatever we are doing, it should be an offering to the Lord, because both pious and impious activities are all binding. Anything that we do in this material world creates some positive and negative reaction. In science, the third law of motion. To every action, there's an equal and corresponding reaction. So therefore, devotees are very, very careful to not be involved in activities that create some negative reaction, because our activities produce effects. We have karma, we have akarma, we have vikarma, then there's ugra karma. Ugra karma means horrible karma. There are activities people perform, we engage in, they produce horrible effect. And of course, there is activities that we do, which is Krishna consciousness, there is no karma, there's no negative effect. Therefore, Arjuna, Yudhishthira Maharaj did what he did, or he was doing his sacrifice, not because he wanted to please himself, but because he was instructed by one, General Bhishmadev. Two, Lord Krishna himself. He was doing this jagya to please the Lord, to please the Lord. Therefore, he collected these items and used them for pleasing the Lord. So Prabhupada said in here in this purport, he said, this indicates that unintentional sins are also committed in our daily occupational discharge of duties. And so to counteract even such unintentional crimes, one must perform sacrifices as they are recommended in the revealed scriptures. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajnatat karmanon yatro. That is Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text number 9. Let's just 3:9, Lord Krishna said, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will also remain free from bondage. So this is the way out. So from this text 9 to text number 16 of Bhagavad Gita, we have what we call the circle of sacrifice. And if you go to text number 13, Lord Krishna is telling us, because we are engaged in so many activities and eating is one of them. No matter how renounced we become in this material world, we must eat. You will not say you will not eat. You may be able to fast for some days, but eventually you will break your fast. So look, and because it's activity done in human body, it also creates some bondage. Therefore, Lord Krishna also taught us how to be free from this bondage. And he said, the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sins. So the devotees are very, very careful. They take prasad. Devotees take prasad. This day we see that we have minimized our process a lot, so much. We have minimized so many things about our system. Now we believe so many different things. There's a language going on now, but we do things that appear to be wrong, and when we are confronted, we say, oh, don't worry, Krishna understand. But then in Bhagavatam, it's explained that one who discards scriptural rules and regulations, even in an emergency, will go to hell. So emergency should not make us to eat boga. When Srila Prabhupada was sick as a baby, they diagnosed him, the medical doctors will diagnose and tell, okay, this is the only medicine The only medicine that can cure this ailment is that you have to make pepper soup with meat for him. That is the only way. So, Mohan, the father of Srila Prabhupada, when he heard this, he said, no way, I cannot take it. And we know even our immediate society, and when I say immediate society, I mean our Vaishnava community today, we will call him a fanatic. No, you, Prabhuji, try to understand, this is a matter of life and soul. Just prepare the meat for him. After that, he go back to vegetarian life. What is the problem? But Mohan said, no, I can't do it. I cannot. My son, on no reason, will eat meat. He cannot eat meat. It's better he dies. Sometimes when we announce a Ekadasi and we announce some fasting, some devotees will say, Prabhu, you know, I cannot fast, I have ulcer, I have this. Sometimes I used to jokingly say, which I also mean in my heart, what is the problem if we fast and die? Chant Hare Krishna sufficiently, observe a Ekadasi and die from there. What is the problem? But the point is that just like yesterday saw this Kali Yoga, one of the effects, one of the problems of this age is that people will be lazy for spirituality. They'll be lazy. So out of laziness, we have so many defense. But Mohan, the father of Srila Prabhupada, he was not a lazy man. He had unflinching faith on Krishna and the process. And he said, my son cannot eat meat. Come what may, my son will not eat meat. Just to cut a long story short, they have to do so many things. Keep him in the house. Lock him somewhere. And of course, because the son is truly a devotee, just by the smell of the whatever they brought, the Prabhupada vomited everything, vomited. So what are we saying? We should not say, oh, circumstantial warrant. When Srila Prabhupada traveled out of India, he encountered so many things. And at different times, he was advised. One, he was advised to change his dress. You know, here you have to wear suit. You have to appear very nicely. Prabhupada said, no, I have not come here to take. I have come here to give. When you people came to our country, you came to steal from us. Somehow or the other, the most important thing that we have, which you forgot to take, I brought it to you. And they asked, what is that? He said, the glorious wealth of the Vedic India. Somewhere else, Prabhupada was finding it difficult to get even vegetables. No cabbage, no Irish potato, all these things, they were difficult for him to get. So he was advised, Prabhupada, you should eat whatever is available. Prabhupada said, no, I will not. I cannot change. I cannot change. There are so many instances, so many examples where Srila Prabhupada stood firm in maintaining its principles, devotional principles. So, Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text number 27, still, now he gave us one single formula to help us to become free from the bondage of pious and impious activities. And what did he say? Yat karosi yat ajnasi, yat juhosi dadasi yat, yat tapasya sekunteya, tat purushwa tat mad arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, whatever austerity you may perform, do it as an offering unto me. This is the way. Whatever we are doing, it should be done as an offering to God, as an offering to Lord Krishna. That is the way we can become free from the effect. Whatever we do in this body, in this material world, has some sinful effects. But to become free, whatever we are doing should be done as service to the Lord. They will become free. Just like Lord Krishna told Arjuna, do thou fighting for the sake of fire, you are just do it as a service to me. Then you'll be free from the effect. And Arjuna also, when he was fighting, he fought as an offering to the Lord. No, but so that some of us will not later start doing our own thing. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was told to perform this sacrifice to get rid of the effect. If you study Bhagavatam so very well, you will see that at different times, different personalities, they committed some sinful activities, they made some mistakes, and they had to atone. His Holiness Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, he called it retribution. Restitution. Restitution. So Krishna Pastor, you have to restitute. His Holiness, like Kapichandra Swami Maharaj said, it is demonic and wickedness to tell somebody sorry. You have created some harm. You have created problem. You have demoralized somebody. You have brought someone down. Then you say sorry and walk away. He said, no, bring the person back to where you met him or her. These are the words of the acharyas. So both Kapichandra Maharaj's statement and Srila statement agree. We must restitute. So that we don't one day wake up and do whatever we do and go and think that we can just go like that. So Bhishma Dev recommends that Yudhishthira Maharaj should do this sacrifice for atonement or restitution, which was supported by Lord Krishna himself. And Srila Prabhupada, somewhere else in this purport, he said, therefore, the main purpose of performing sacrifice is to satisfy the Supreme Personality, Hare. The process of performing sacrifice may be different in times of different place and persons, but the aim of such a sacrifice is one and the same at all times and in all circumstances. What is the aim? The aim is to satisfy the Lord. And in Bhagavatam, it is said, whatever we do, anything, whatever it is that does not provoke attraction for Krishna is simply a useless labor. We saw in the life of Srila Vyasadeva, he did a great work, but at the end of the day, he was not happy. And his Guru Maharaj, Srila Narada Muni, diagnosed him and told him, you have not sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead and devotional service to him. And he explained further in that chapter that anything that we do, if it does not glorify the Lord, is a waste of time. He went further, he said, does not a thing that cause a problem becomes also the solution to that problem? So you have written, from your writing, there is a problem. You are despondent. So you should write again and free yourself. So now you have to write about the devotional service to the Lord, speak about the Lord himself and the pure devotees. So Prabhupada used the word here, said, this is the way of peace and prosperity. The way of peace. And that is the way of peace and prosperity in the world at large. What is the way? The way of living, the way of performing sacrifices, or the way of doing activities with the aim of pleasing the Lord. The only way there will be peace in this material world is when we begin to work for God. When we do what we do for the sake of pleasing the Lord. When we maintain self-centeredness, we may call it community project, community service, or whatever, but our churches call it self-centeredness, extended selfishness. Sometimes people sink borehole, they make schools, they give charity, they do philanthropical activities. Yes, it's wonderful, but the inner consciousness is that I should be recognized and be praised. Therefore, it's also binding. So only when we perform activities with the sole aim of pleasing the Lord, that is when we become free. Anyway, because of time, so the other part of this purport, Srila Prabhupada started speaking about the holy name. He glorified the holy name. Just like we said in the beginning, different ages have different religious process. And there are reasons for that. The facilities available in a particular age will not be enough or conducive to perform the kind of sacrifices that were performed in previous age, or the religion that was enacted in previous age. So Srila Prabhupada explained that in this age, the best religion, the only workable religion, only practical religion, which saves time, because in Kali Yoga, we don't have time. We just read now that King Maruta reigned for 1,000 years. If he reigned for 1,000 years, it means that he lived beyond 1,000 years. But we have 100 years and it is not sure. The 100 years is not sure. So we don't have time. We don't have facilities. Therefore, Mahaprabhu, in his infiniteness, in his magnanimity, in his benevolence, he gave us a simple process of religion. And he said, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, Kalo nasteva nasteva gatiyayata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. If you study all the scriptures that we have in this age, you will see that they all agree with the fact that the only religion for this age is the chanting of the names of God. If you go to the Bible, in different portions of the Bible, for example, like David wrote in the Psalms, he said, let everything that have breath call on the names of God. And the further said, they who call on the names of God, they shall be saved. David wrote in the same Kali Yuga. Then, when Jesus Christ himself came, he made only one prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Praise be thy name. Still emphasis on the chanting of the holy name. And in the Islamic scripture, it is explained, which is also scripture of the age of Kali. It is said, the most beautiful names belongs to Almighty Allah, and one should call on him by these names. So many places, different scriptures, there are so many emphasis on the chanting of the names of God. It said somewhere else that from the rising of the sun to its setting, one should constantly call on the names of God. In the teachings of Buddha, in Amida Buddha, it is mentioned that they who call on the names of God, they shall get paradise. So we see that we are not just speaking out of fanaticism, or our scripture is not just saying something that is not confirmed. It is confirmed even by other scriptures. Just like when Lord Krishna teach to Arjuna. At the end of the teachings, Lord Krishna asked Arjuna some questions. Your doubts, have they been cleared? Is your illusion gone? Arjuna very happily said yes. And Arjuna made a statement. All these things you are telling me now, they have been said before by great personalities like Asita, Devala, and the rest of them. And you yourself, you are now again telling me these same things by yourself, which means a confirmation. That is the reason why we say we're not practicing a fanatical religion. It's not a sectarian religion. It's a religion for everyone. And in this purport, as Prabhupada was emphasizing on chanting the holy name, he also reminded us, condemn animal killing for this age. The Brahmanas in previous ages, they chant mantras and offer animals to the sacrifice. Prabhupada said they had the potency that they rejuvenate the animal, which we cannot do now. In African settings, sometimes people go to some witch doctors, like Ghanaians will say witch doctors, Nigerian will say native doctor or babalawo. So they go to these places, and then when they want to profess solution, they will tell you, okay, you need to kill one goat, you need to buy one ram, you need to buy one cock. But then when you look at them closely, if you are close to them, you see that what are they doing? They just cut the neck, they just slit the throat, they recite whatever they like, and then the animal will end in the pot to feed their belly. It's a way of collecting and maintaining themselves. But the Brahmanas in those days, they were not doing this for personal aggrandizement. And of course, they had the potency, they had the ability that they were able to rejuvenate the animals. Therefore, they could do that. But we don't have these facilities. We don't have the means. Personally, I have taken to cognizant one thing, that even among us now, today, devotees, even the shlokas we are reciting, we don't want to recite them. We don't get the right reading. We don't get the right meters. We just recite as long as I recite. So if we cannot recite even the shlokas which we recite every day, how are we going to recite huge mantras, big mantras, which Brahmanas recite in the Vedic age when they do so many jagyas? So we just have to surrender to the religion for this age. And this religion was inaugurated by the Supreme Lord himself. And Srila Prabhupada made it clearer to us, present it to us such a way that we can understand it and we can practice it and be happy. And Srila Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He said two things. One, he said, your life will be sublime. And somewhere else, he said, and be happy. So in this material world, in Nectar of Devotion, it is explained that every single man, everybody is looking for happiness. And of course, there are three types of happiness: material happiness, spiritual happiness, and devotional happiness. Material happiness and spiritual happiness is temporary, but devotional happiness is eternal. Therefore, intelligence means remove your mind from the changing, from the impermanent, and fix your mind in the permanent, which is called the absolute. Therefore, if we truly want to be happy, we should seek happiness by engaging in devotional service. It is explained that in the spiritual world, our happiness is increasing by second. It's always increasing, doesn't go down. In the material world, there are so many sources of happiness, so-called sources of happiness. They stay for some time, they dwindle, they disappear. As different things keep coming, and with the mind that they will satisfy us, they will give us happiness. But we see that today, the material world, suicide rate is increasing. Now, even when people don't want to commit suicide, terrorists will come, invade people's houses, create problems, and other things like that. Even the terrorists themselves, why are they doing so? They are looking for happiness. They will ask for ransom, ask for some millions of nairas or some dollars, because they feel when there is money, they'll be happy. But our acharyas have explained, Chaitanya Prabhu, the Supreme Lord himself, has explained, if we want to live a comfortable, peaceful, happy life, we should chant the holy names of the Lord. In this purport, the Prabhupada explained that the chanting is so potent that it can eradicate more sin than huge sacrifices we were able to eradicate in previous ages. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained in one of the purports in chapter 1 that chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra can forgive more offense than can be committed. So anybody who is a businessman who is very intelligent, you will want to do investment that will give you maximum profit, because the aim of business is not to make profit, but to maximize profit. And therefore, in the business of human existence, the best business is the chant of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by this chanting, one will get the highest results, the highest benefit. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yadhunath Prabhu. That's a very beautiful class. You said so many things, which I'm sure some of the devotees may have questions. So at this point, we ask the devotees, if you have any question, you indicate that by using the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Yadhunath Prabhu, you were describing how grandfather Bhishma Dev himself advised Maharaj Yudhishthira to perform the horse sacrifice, the Ashwamedha, to atone for his sins. So I know in the Christian world also, they also have a similar thing, not by sacrificing horse, but they call it confession, where a practitioner will go to a priest and confess his sins and ask for forgiveness. What is the difference? What is the difference between what the Christians are doing with the pastors or ministers, and then that of the Ashwamedha sacrifice, for example, in the Vedic times? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In Nectar of Instruction, first mantra, first test, in the purpose, the proper condemn this process of atonement. So I don't want to look at the difference, but I want to cite the fact that the proper already condemn it. He says it doesn't work because it's not really atonement. It doesn't touch the heart. So after confession, they go back. After Saturday, they continue committing offenses. The proper give an analogy in that Nectar of Instruction. The analogy of an elephant. When the elephant finishes baiting, it goes back and then throw itself into the sand. So Prabhupada, what is the use for that kind of bat? It didn't actually bait. So according to the Prabhupada analogy and explanation, what the Christians are doing is not actually atonement, because they're not actually atoning. Just confessing a sin doesn't mean you have atoned. The most important thing is to have a change of heart. When Yudhishthira Maharaj did this, he never went back. Maharaj never went for another war after Kurukshetra. I don't know, but as much as I know, he never killed any other thing any other time again. So I think the best thing the Christian would have said that they should be born again. Being born again means you abstain, you refrain completely from sinful activities. So if you confess, the best thing is don't go back to it. Then it will help. But they are going back, so it's nothing. It's just like in our process also here, it is explained that the Maha Mantra is very potent, it's powerful, very efficacious, it has so much effect. But at the same time, there is a number 7 offense, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. If one is chanting the holy name of the Lord and is committing sinful activities with the belief that if we keep chanting, then his chanting becomes non-effective, no more effect. He's not actually chanting at that time because now he's committing nama aparad. So he cannot be saved. So in a simple language, I just want to stand on what Prabhupada have said. Prabhupada condemned that process. That's how much I want to speak about it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Anyone else with any question? The devotees are usually quiet. Oh, Mr. Ravinda Devi. Yeah, please unmute and ask your question. Hare Krishna, good to see you here.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to share Srimad Bhagavatam, which is always pure, but it's also very wonderful to hear it in a way that makes connectors and to our material processors of the mind and then the heart, so that we can understand better and do better as aspiring devotees. The aspect of the widow and Yadhunath's imprisoning his elders in connection with the goat marriage. Would you reflect upon that again, please?
Okay. Yadhunath Prabhu, did you get a question?
The last part I didn't hear. Maybe you can repeat it.
It says you were talking about how Duryodhan was so mad because he was told that his mom was married to a goat. So if you'd like to throw more light on that.
Anyway, just like we said in the beginning, when Gandhari was a lady, as a young girl, this you will find in Mahabharata. So the astrologers were contacted, and they look into the stars that govern her life and the experience she will have in the future. So it was shown there's some malefic influence for those who are into astrology. And it was said that it will be a widow at early age. So the father became very disturbed, and then he got some suggestions that there is a remedy. Because if you go into astrology, for example, there's something that they call Mangal Dosha, Mangal Smaran. When there's a Mangal effect in a person's astrological chart, there are 3 remedies that can be done. 1, the person gets married to a pipal tree, and the pipal tree is later cut down before the person now married to a human being. 2, there's another one they call Kumbha Vivaha. The person gets married to a kumbha, a pot with water inside. So after the what do we call it? After the marriage ceremony, the Vivaha, then they break the pot. Then 3 is to marry to a banana tree. And after that, the tree is cut down. These are the 3 kind of Vivaha that can be done to avert Mangal Smaran effect on a person's chart. Then apart from that also, the person is advised to keep Kesharis in the house, keep Ganapati in the house, take care of children, and then be giving some grains to birds. So this was, in this people, they do this, they understand, so they do accordingly. So for her, what was recommended for Gandhari's case was for her to be married to a goat. And after the marriage, the goat should be killed to avert her early widowhood. So that was done. And it appears to be like, it was like a secret. But somehow or the other, Duryodhana was very shocked that he never heard of it, but he was insulted with that. So he was very, very disturbed. He was very, very angry. It is said that there are 12 kinds of ego. And one of them is judgmental ego. Judgmental ego is that ego that makes you to see that whatever problem you are facing is caused by some other persons. You want to put the blame on everyone. So Duryodhana, we all know, he had so much ego. And he saw everybody to be his problem. The Pandavas were his problem. Every single person, everybody was his problem, apart from himself and Shakuni. So when he was insulted in this manner, he couldn't take it. As a Kshatriya, the Kshatriyas, they have zero tolerance. So he couldn't take it. And he decided to do something, to punish them, to chastise them for that action. So he imprisoned all of them in an underground prison. And the grandfather died in that prison. While they were in that prison, they were bringing very little food for them to eat. And the grandfather told them, whether we eat this little food or not, we are all going to die. So it is better we fast and die. And whatever little food is coming, let's feed it to one person who will take revenge on our behalf. So all the food that was coming, when they throw the food, they will take the food and feed it to Shakuni. And of course, at the end, the grandfather died. Every other person in the prison died, apart from Shakuni. And from the bone in the body of the grandfather, he got the dice, which he was using in Gambo. So that dice was not ordinary. So it was a weapon for revenge. And Shakuni also coming to stay with Duryodhana also had, Duryodhana was thinking in his mind that Shakuni was on his side. But Shakuni actually lived with Duryodhana because he wanted to destroy Duryodhana. And that was what he did. He did everything, all his advice, he actually against Duryodhana. But materially, it looked like, oh, they were all wonderful advice. Anyway, in a simple language, one lady also in our ISKCON, and one lady, I think they call her Sri Devi. She wrote a book, and she titled that book, How Astrology Can Destroy Your Life. So we know that astrology is very good, but then some of us sometimes may not be mature enough to bear what we are told. So people don't have this kind of ID card. They should be careful how they contact or they consult astrologers. At the same time, too, there are some astrologers also, they're not very experts. Some people, they just read one or two things and they start to look into people's life. And they say so many things and sometimes they cause problems. But for devotees, we know that higher than astrology is devotional service. When proper devotional service is performed, Srila Prabhupada, I remember one time, Srila Prabhupada had an astrologer friend who used to come to him. And the astrologer was interested in checking the palms of the devotees. So Prabhupada, actually at a point, he allowed him. So later they asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, don't mind him. This man doesn't know that the lines in the palms of a devotee keep changing. As long as you are engaged in devotional service, you are chanting the holy name, the lines in your palm, they keep changing. So a devotee should not be disturbed about astrology. Anyway, that depends on the level at which one is practicing. So Duryodhana, he was very, very angry at this incident and he did what he did. And if you want to judge him by Kshatriya code, you will not blame him too much also. But devotees, yes, they will not act like that. There are 10 practical tips for mind management. And one of them, number 4, states that no one can make or mar your career. So when a person have this kind of knowledge, he will not be disturbed whatever happens. But Duryodhana didn't have this knowledge, so he was very, very disturbed. And then he had to compound his problem by killing his elders. And he suffered, he paid for it. At the end of the day, he was standing alone, nobody by his side. And he died a miserable death. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your exceptionally generous and informative response to my request for more information. I see that you're quite knowledgeable about Shastra and that you've also taken the time to engage yourself in, studying the Mahabharata. And, it's considered, some people speak of it in a way that I don't particularly appreciate, because I find that the Mahabharata is very detailed and very much creating and giving you experiences of vision. You can almost see everything happening in the past times. So I just wanted to thank you for referencing it and giving more information about it as you give your this information about Srimad Bhagavatam. And I wanted to also thank you for just having a wealth of knowledge and giving it in a way that's very exciting and very detailed. And yeah, I'm very much in gratitude. Thank you so much for a superior class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. So Mitravinda Devi is Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's senior disciples in the USA. She's one of them. Anyone else with a question, with a comment, realizations? His Grace Yadhunath Prabhu, I have one last question. Please,
okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, help us with this question. I understand Srila Prabhupada was explaining how difficult it is to have competent Brahmins to chant the appropriate mantras. And you also gave a very good detailed explanation to that. So we don't have the qualified Brahmins to perform such sacrifices and chant such mantras. So Lord Chaitanya, in his gracious mercy, gave us this Harinam Sankirtan, which is the yagya for this age. And I heard from Mahavishnu Maharaj some time ago that just as a mother can understand the babbling of her little baby, when the little baby is babbling something, almost everybody else doesn't understand what the baby is saying. But the mother, because out of love, she understands. So as devotees, we are not very much concerned about correct pronunciation of mantras. If we know them, good, but that is secondary. Now, that is not the case with performance of yagyas outside of devotional service. I'm sure we all know there was a time somebody was chanting a mantra for a boy, and then he made a mistake, chanted the sloka, like he extended it. And so instead of a boy, he had a girl. So my question is, now that we have some of our devotees who are practicing devotional service, also performing these yagyas, of course, not animal sacrifices, but they're performing other yagyas which involve other mantras. If they make mistake in the meter or the pronunciation of the mantra, does that give like negative results, or it will give same results because it's a devotee? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In there is a book by I'm trying to remember the name of this book, but it's a Jagya book. So in that book, it is explained that before a devotee will engage in Jagya, there are two things he must do. One, he must chant his rounds properly. He must have a very good sadhana, and he must do Sandhya Vardhanam every single day, at least 3 times. Sandhya Vardhana must be done every day. Any person who is going to sit down to do Jagya that does not know Sandhya Vardhana should not do. And of course, if the Mahamantra is superior, then we should be able to chant enough. One should chant nicely. So we should not minimize, one should not in the name of Jagya or whatever minimize the holy name. One must chant very, very well, chant enough. There are some processes that we cannot completely eradicate or cancel. So we still have to follow them as practical as possible. Now, in our system, there are some samskaras that should be done when for impregnation, babies are born, namakarana, and other simple sacrifices. But if you look at Srila Prabhupada book, which he compiled for samskara, the one they compiled in ISKCON, the one compiled, Srila Prabhupada method is very simple. During the process of Jagya, we engage devotees to be chanting the holy name. Number one, this creates more auspiciousness. And if you look at the mantras Prabhupada mainly use, he does Vaishnava Homa. Because when the Vaishnavas are pleased, Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, all the 3 million demigods are pleased. So whatever you want, whatever you are trying to do becomes auspicious. So in a very simple language, let me not speak too much. Yes, we don't have people who are actually really very qualified according to the influence of the age, and as the acharyas have said it. But if we must do in this age, there is a clause. There's one thing that is said that we should do. We must learn and practice the Sandhya Vardhanam on daily basis. Just like it is said that a Brahmana must chant his Gayatri thread at least 3 times, normal 3 times a day. We call it Anik, for you to know you are a Brahmana. Otherwise, you're not a Brahmana. So also, if one must do puja, he must do jagyas, he must do this Sandhya Vardhanam. At least, we can use it. We can make a good use of a bad bargain. The situation is bad as it is because of deterioration and the influence of the age. But whatever little we want to do, we should try to maintain standard as possible. So the standard for doing Jagya in this era is that you must do Sandhya Vardhanam and you must chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra properly. So anybody who is just sitting down and think that, okay, I will just charge some money and it's not doing Sandhya Vardhanam, then he's creating some danger for himself. You know, sometimes we are doing Jagya, we sit down on foam or we sit down on certain things. The mat you are supposed to use to sit down is supposed to be kusha grass. And it is explained, kusha grass, it acts as isolane. It hurts you. It prevents you from being shocked or affected by the karma or the negative activities or negative effects that is in the environment or that could happen in the time of the Jagya. So there are specifications, there are standards that can be followed. So those who are interested in doing Jagya, they should know it and they should be properly trained. Now we have some schools, even in India, we have some personalities who are training people how to recite mantras. Just like we are saying that even among us, we don't know how to recite shlokas. But there are some devotees who can do this very nicely, who are training people. So it's a matter of interest. If devotees are interested, they can learn. For the Jagya, everybody cannot go into it. If only 1 person or 2 persons are there at least, just for ceremonial functions, it's okay. But we should maintain standard. One who is going to do Jagya, he should be able to know the Sandhya Vardhanam, and he should have inflicting faith on the holy name. He should chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra like any other thing. And in every Jagya, he should always look for a way to chant the Mahamantra. Srila Prabhupada will always add the Mahamantra in his Jagya. All the Jagya books that I personally have read, Mahamantra is not written. But because Srila Prabhupada understands the fact that we are not qualified in this age, we cannot recite properly. So the mantra that is very benevolent, Mahaprabhu said, there is no hard and fast rule for chanting this mantra, which is the holy name. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada included the Mahamantra when he's doing Jagya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Yadhunath Prabhu. That's a very beautiful answer to my question. I hope it will help others also. Anyone else with a question, comment? Before we bring the class to a close. Well, I must say thank you so much, Yadhunath Prabhu, for the wonderful class you gave.
Hare Krishna.
I think if everybody listened attentively, we will learn so much from what you presented to us today. So at this point, we're going to ask all the devotees to unmute And then we chant Big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation for Prabhu's delivery of the Bhagavatam. Jai, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Ram, Ram Ram,
Rama
Hare Hare.
Rama, Hare Hare.
all glories to His grace. Yadhunath Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada, Patako,
Jai.
Sachi Devi, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Are you crazy? Perhaps you will not go there and spell that out. I'll come with you, please. Please don't.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare